This is our general lower body prep. It's a general warm-up for the lower body. It can be used as a sort of dynamic mobility routine just to assess how we're feeling and to make sure that we're actually touching shapes before we begin the training. It's also useful on days where I'm not training just to be prepared or to kind of think of this as a modern movement practice. Again, this is just a lower extremity piece. First thing I do is I'm going to drop down, keep my weight centered between ball of foot and heel, and just feel what the bottom position of my squat feels like. So this is, remember, the first mobility WOD we ever did was spending 10 minutes in this bottom position, noodling around, moving around. So first thing I'm going to do is just assess how I'm feeling here. And then from this position, I like to do a couple things. First of all, I just want to wiggle to the side. This is closing the ankle down. I'm keeping on my breathing, closing the ankle down, reaching forward one side, then the other side, keeping just moving and forcing my body just to reconcile with working in this bottom shape. A couple of the ideas here is if I struggle to get all the way down, it's absolutely okay to be on my toes in this position. What we want you to do is actually to close your feet down and spend time at the end range of your ankle. This is what we're intending. But don't turn your feet out and let your arches collapse. So keep that ankle in neutral. So even if I'm stuck at this working in this bottom position, I'm going to keep my feet straight to make sure that the ankle stays in a good stable position. From here, what we're going to do is we're going to come up and we're just going to put the right knee down, and that's flexing this big toe to 90 degrees. So I'm actually putting in some load into the foot and into the big toe, and this is a vital position. I come back and I'm just going to wobble back and forth a few times just to make sure that I actually am loading the foot and loading the ankle in these end ranges. So just touch that knee and come back. Oftentimes we'll balance and then do the same drill, just working on one toe, then the other toe. From this position, we're just going to step the foot up. And what's great about just stepping this foot up is it gives me two opportunities. The first opportunity, like our general squat hip opener, is to move a little bit and find position in corners on the front hip. So a couple things that I do specifically here. One is I like to rotate as far as I can and take some big breaths and noodle around. So I'm looking over, trying to see the back foot, either on the toes flat or foot straight, doesn't matter, wobbling around. I can go elbows to the ground here, if I can access it and still do that wobbling. I also like to turn away, driving the foot one direction, body the other direction. I can put my hands on the ground and even fight in different directions. So trying to open up this lateral seam, take a big breath right into that hip and trying to create as much distance between the hip and the knee and the hand as possible. It's also an easy place to add in some rotations. Just take a look at it. Classically, you see this on the internet a ton in those shapes. But since we're here, one of the things we get out of this is we also get the back leg moving. So what's going to happen now is that I'm going to lift the back leg up, make sure that I can actually squeeze the glutes, flex the quads straight, press the chest tall as the hip comes down, but keep that long lever position. So really fight for getting the leg straight. Engage the quads, engage the glutes, and then press down. We're just going to hit that end range a few times, as stiff as I can be, trying to work on hip extension in this long lever shape. Just a few more times, working on that breathing. Since we're already here, we like to throw this in with the other leg. So now I'm coming back to the bias on the front leg, and what I'm going to do is just work on what we call flossing. Flexing the quads against the stiff hamstring and trying to get the leg straight. I'm trying to address stiffness in the posterior chain, but I'm also trying to tell my nervous system, hey, I need to be able to have access to this position. So if I have to come higher, that's totally okay. If I can add in a little bit of a foot pump back, that's going to tension up a little bit further. Again, notice I focus on quads coming on, foot coming back to tension, and then finally I'll start to drop the head down a little bit. So drop the head, and by the time we've hit about 15 reps or so, we'll switch sides. So I rotate to the other side. Again, just start by kind of assessing where my hips are, how I'm feeling, what's going on here in this shape. I can go ahead and start to turn and move that hip into some different directions where I'm noodling around and just feeling the end range flexion of this hip, keeping the foot in a relatively good position. I'm now going to just make sure I can turn and take a breath. Drop to the leg to the ground for a second and just force that flexion. Don't worry about your back, in the best position you have access to. Then let's go ahead and start pushing the other direction. So I'm going to start low this time. Knee goes one direction, hand goes the other, trying to create as much space between my hand and the knee as possible. Big breath in, breathe into that side, get some motion in there, do your best. Come high and do the same drill, just noodling around to the other side, feeling where I'm tight. The goal here, again, is to sort of be in constant motion. From this position, take a breath. If you need to come up to rotate the other direction, that's totally okay too. Take a breath. Come back in. We've got the back leg. Leg is straight, quads are engaged. Flex and squeeze the butt as hard as you can. Press the chest up as the hip goes down. Keeping the leg straight, quads on. I'm on the big toe here. Straighten that leg, engage the quads. Check, my leg is straight, good. And I'm just gonna press down a few times. I can wiggle into different shapes here and feel like, oh, there's my TFL. That's where I feel like I'm tight. Find a ray, find a corner, find a vector that works for you. This is called informed freestyling. We rotate back to the front leg, working on some hamstring flossing. Leave the toe pointed, get a solid quad set. Straighten the leg for that impulse. When you own it, start to bring the foot back into it, just a little bit. Pulling that foot back as I go. Dropping the head down a little bit. Getting a little bit of motion in here. Keep an eye on your breathing. We're just trying not to go fast. We're just trying to touch this end range so that my nervous system knows it may be required to actually be under some tension today. One of the things that we're doing to restore how those tissues are sliding. I'll come back now to squat, and what I'm going to do is stick the leg out to the side. And in this position, I get to work on my adductors a little bit, seeing if I can hold tall. If I need to hold myself up with my hands, that's absolutely okay. From this position, we add a little bit of rotation through the leg, verticalize the shin, shift to the other side, sit down. We're trying to close the ankle down, get comfortable closing this ankle down. From this chest, can I get my chest tall? Add some rotation, front and back. Verticalize the shin, and then from here, we're gonna flex the quad, try to take myself out over my base of support. So I'm adding some rotation. Notice I keep my arches engaged, feet straight, trying to flex the quadriceps so that I end up touching the stiffness of the adductors in this position. We come back to squat, and it's a quick 8-minute spin up to get your hips and lower body prepped. And no matter what happens for the rest of the day, I guarantee you'll feel better and more ready.